So there's a new dark comedy slasher film on Prime Video, and we just watched it. So stick around to find out what we thought about it, and we will be back in 1 second.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another I Popcorn for That review. I'm Chris.
I'm Nick.
And today we're here to talk about the newest Prime Video movie, Totally Killer. So this is a slasher, dark comedy, kind of in the vein of like Happy Death Day. Kind of a comedy more so than a horror movie, but there's plenty of blood and guts getting slung around. So let's talk about some of the things we liked about this. So what were a couple things that stood out to you as positives here?
I thought, it follows the slasher formula pretty well, and it just puts that little twist on it, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. It was a fun little movie. It was funny.
And it's definitely knows it's going for the Back to the Future thing. Like it's winking at the Back to the Future thing more than I expected it to. Actually, I mean, she mentions Back to the Future by name. Like she's like, "Have you guys not seen Back to the Future?" I think it does the '80s vibes pretty well. It kind of captures that like bright neon color vibe that you get from the '80s. You get some good classic like '80s radio tunes in here, so the soundtrack's good. Like I said, it's very like self-aware, so it knows that it's like doing a lot of throwbacks to previous movies, especially John Hughes movies.
Right.
Because we got the
Molly
Mollies.
Ringwald, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, it was pretty funny seeing a kid from like 2023 dropped into 87 and used to like all like the more PC culture and everything's more locked down in schools, and she's getting dropped off or starting school. So like she's going to the receptionist and she's like, "I'm a transfer student. I'm from Canada. Do you need my information?" She's like, "Nope. Here's your schedule. Just go."
You're already late to gym.
Yeah, get out of there.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, like a lot of that actually is like just the pre 9/11 world.
Yeah.
Like not even just the fact that it's 80s, but like everything got kind of more complicated after 9/11, where like there's a lot more paperwork and a lot more security and everything's got to really be locked down.
Well, and they even make a reference to that too. She's like, "I'd be amazed to see what it's like at an airport right now."
Yeah. And I guess they probably were making a 9/11 reference there. But yeah, I think most of the humor in this movie, and I wouldn't say a whole lot of this is like laugh out loud funny, but it's the right amount of like amusing,
right?
Chuckle to yourself kind of funny. But a lot of the comedy that really lands for me was, like you said, like her bringing her 2023 sensibilities to 1987 America.
Yeah, like there's a scene where they're playing dodgeball, and it's like she doesn't even know what's going on. They don't even play dodgeball. It's too rough.
Yeah, or like when she's in 1987, and the guy who will eventually become the PE teacher, the coach, picks her up and throws her over his shoulder, and she's saying stuff about unwanted touch, and they're like, "Unwanted person."
Yeah.
But there's things peppered all throughout where it's like, oh, man, the '80s are crazy.
Right.
And like I said, I think that's where most of the comedy comes from. I don't think there's any comedy that completely falls flat, but this isn't like the comedy of the year or anything like that. But it reminded me a lot of, like I said, Happy Death Day. I don't think I ever watched Happy Death Day to you. But I'm sure, same director and everything. That's the first thing that came to mind. What are any other movies come to mind for you that are kind of in this? It's not quite like Tucker and Dale versus Evil level horror comedy or anything like that. Certainly not the gore level.
No, the gore is pretty light on it. Like the Happy Death Day for you is what came to mind for me as well. It's kind of like, except for it's not Groundhog Day, it's time travel. So.
It's Happy Death Day to you if it was borrowing from Back to the Future instead of Groundhog Day.
Yeah. And it's like I feel they did a good job of like explaining how the time travel is going to work for them, because you're thinking like in your mind you have how time travel set up, especially if they're referencing Back to the Future, but then they're coming back and saying like, well, no, it doesn't work like that. If your parents don't get together, you're not going to disappear.
You're not going to disappear. You're just going to have no home and nobody knows who you are.
Yeah. But I thought that was pretty good how they explained that away, because the whole time I'm like, that's not going to work like that. And they're like, well, it's going to work because of ABC.
And like all time travel movies, you can pick apart some holes in this. Like or maybe not holes, but it's like, by the end of this movie, not to spoil anything, I'll just be vague and say like, by the end of this movie, it's like, okay, but there's a world where there's a dead person.
Yeah.
You're just dealing with the one that didn't die. But I I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it, but I think ultimately I like that they kind of gloss over the whole time travel thing and make it. It's the way the '80s would have handled something like that almost. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's
Yeah.
like it's very much like yeah. I'm just well, it's a teenager that builds this time machine, but she's using her mom's notebook. So at first I was like, well, maybe her mom like went on to be this. I can't remember what her mom's actual career is
It
in
seemed
the
like she was
current
just working at a
day.
manufacturing plant, I think.
Yeah, so she didn't turn out to be like an engineer or anything like that, but she's using her mom's old notebook. And when you meet the mom as a teenager, it's like, oh, she kind of had it most of the way figured out as a teenager. So it is kind of like you gotta forgive some things, and just take some leaps in believability here and there. But I expected it to,
Yeah.
and like the knife going into the control panel, I guess, of this. It was just a photo booth, but it's been turned into a time machine. And him jabbing the knife in there, like adds like boosts the signal and adds more metal to boost the signal and stuff.
Yeah, it
And
was
you're
just like
like,
a
sure.
it was like a conductivity thing. And you're like, okay, yeah, they didn't think about putting the more conductivity wires in there or anything. It just the knife happened to help.
And then the mom in '87, she has her version of the time machine, but it looks very much like, and it's intentionally looks very much like the helmet that Doc Brown wears on Back to the Future,
Right.
but like a smaller version of it. And like she has her cell phone near that helmet, and she's like, "Wait a second, I've got a signal," and I'm like, "You've got a Wi-Fi signal?" I don't even. That's a stretch even for this. That might have been.
Well, I think the way
Uh,
they tried to explain it was like the news van's satellite dish was causing a Wi-Fi signal or somehow connecting it. I don't know.
what are a couple cons with this? Because it's not perfect, and I don't think there's many that are worth mentioning, but I'm sure you got one or two.
So I think they did break a couple of the rules that they set up with their time travel thing by explaining things. And like without saying too much, but like towards the end, if they're like she's recognized by some people and not recognized by others that she spent time with in the past, and I was like, that doesn't make sense if somebody's gonna recognize you completely and remember all this, and then all these other people who are super close to you as well, they don't know that it happened at all. They just think you're the person you are now.
Yeah, that does not make sense. I was expecting no one to remember what happened in the
Right.
'80s, uh, and especially the thing with the. I won't say more than this. Hopefully, you can't read into this too much. But the thing with the jacket
Right.
is like you okay. You, how how do you not know about the jacket?
Dude, yeah,
But
and
okay,
like where did the jacket really come from?
yeah.
Who acquired
I don't
this
know.
jacket?
I don't know.
But maybe that was just breaking, like changing the rules of time. And
The
another thing,
big the biggest con for me. Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, the whole thing about like it kind of starts off with this guy who's basically like reading his intro from his podcast about the serial killer who killed these three girls in 1987 called the Sweet 16 Killer. Because like I thought it was gonna be based on like they all got killed on their 16th birthday, but it just seemed like he stabbed them
They
16
did.
times. So
They
all
did
their
each get killed on their
birthdays.
16th birthdays, or
Okay,
very close
so
together, days
all
apart. Yeah,
but so all their birthdays were like a few days apart. I guess I didn't. Okay,
I get. Yeah. Hmm.
but it's like this dude has is milking this podcast for I don't know how long he's been doing it, but there's only 3 murders to talk about.
Well, you say that, and this is not really to the credit of this movie as much as it maybe is to the detriment of a classic. But if we can forgive Halloween, well, no, it's not to the detriment of a classic. It's to the detriment of basically trash movies because I don't really love the David Gordon Green movies, and I didn't even see the last one. But like the Halloween franchise being brought back that far after, it's like, oh my God, we're still talking about those murders from because if the Halloween when they brought it back and rebooted it, it ignores all the sequels. So the
Right.
only thing that happened was these murders 40 years ago, and the
Okay.
whole town is in a panic about it. Laurie Strode's life is, you know what I mean? So other movies have done that where it's like, yeah, just and this is just a podcast, but yeah, it doesn't seem like the most.
But it's like
If
how
it just happened in like one weekend basically, and then nothing ever happened since, how do you keep having stuff to talk about in this podcast?
yeah, because I mean, how many episodes could you really talk about on these 3 murders unless there's new information, which there doesn't seem to be. The guy just disappeared, but it seems like he's been milking it for a little while, like giving tours of this town.
And there's a little bit of a fudge, I think, where like the way the first murder that happens in 2023 that kind of kickstarts this whole the wheels of this movie turning. The way that's handled, where like the big thing that stands out in my mind, and I think other things too, but the big thing that stands out in my mind is this podcast dude is right outside of the house where a murder was committed 1 second ago, And he's like, yeah. And he says the name of the person and who they are and everything. And it's like, I don't even know. That certainly wouldn't be allowed in real life, but maybe
Nah.
we're expecting too much reality about this. But I think the thing that I have the biggest problem with is it's borderline too spoilery. But I'll just say this. There's a death in here that's toward the end of the movie. And the way it's handled, I know it's a reference to something that was said earlier in the movie, but that really took me out for a second. The way that person dies and how it looks
I think it is.
like
Yeah.
like super took me out where I'm like, oh, okay, that's not how anything works ever.
Right. Like, and they tried to explain like this is what would happen if, and then it does happen. And I said the line that she says like right before she says it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah, it just
obvious.
that was not great for me. And there's kind of two reveals, again, without getting into too much, but there's two reveals in this. And
Which they
I guess
foreshadow.
yeah, and I guess one's a little more satisfying than the other, but neither of them just really drove it home and nailed the, stuck the landing at the end to me.
Yeah.
But like you said, overall, I think this is a positive experience. I wish I could be raving about it a little more. I don't think it took 100% full potential of what it had, but I enjoyed it. I think this is there's not enough like good Halloween popcorn movies to put on. So
Yeah,
if
I mean,
you like something like Happy Death Day, this is in that category.
yeah, it's a nice little slasher time travel movie that's coming out in the season to watch these types of movies. So it was a nice little surprise.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
I think Kiernan Shipka does a really good job. Randall Park.
Oh yeah.
I think is always good to see. They didn't do a whole lot with him here, but he's always a funny guy to see. That guy that you were talking about, Lachlan Moreau, this guy just pops up in tons of movies of varying qualities over the years, but
Right.
he's a face you'll recognize, I'm sure. And then Julie Bowen is the mother of Kiernan Shipka's character, Jaime, plays Pam. Oh, I just realized I bet Hughes being their last name is like a John Hughes thing,
Oh, I didn't even think about that, but I bet it is.
because they all dress up as Molly Ringwald. But and she's one of, so we don't know this at first, but her mom Pam is one of the Mollys, kind of like the Heathers or the Mean Girls or whatever.
Right,
But
yeah.
like they're not very liked at their high school, and she finds that out when she goes back. But yeah, all the acting was good. I think the main standout is Kiernan Shipka.
Hmm.
I think everybody else does fine, but she's like the one that does the best job with this.
You know, it had some pretty decent action scenes in it too. Like when
Yeah.
I thought that was handled fairly well because it's like they mentioned that they've been taking self-defense classes and stuff, and like the little fight scenes that they did do. I was like, yeah, that looks believable.
Yeah, it's handled well. That was the moments where like there was anything to really say about the cinematography. Like I don't think anything was groundbreaking or amazing about the cinematography in this. It's not really one of those movies, but
Right.
the fight scenes are handled well. A lot of times people handle these action and fight scenes poorly, and where a lot of cutaways and where you can't really follow what's going on with your eyes.
Right. Yeah.
I think this did a good job with that. So yeah, what's your number? What do you think about this thing?
I'd probably give it like a 6.
I think I'm right there. I almost want to give it like a 6.5. It probably would have been a 6.5 if they'd really stuck the landing a little more for me. Because I was finding myself enjoying this for sure. It's not a chore to get through this at all. It's a good time.
Yeah.
So I recommend it. Yeah, I'd say 6. I think we're about the same point. So, guys, if you like this kind of thing, share it with your friends. Hit like below. It helps us out a whole lot. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. We're looking to get to 100 subscribers before the end of the year. That'd be very cool. Stick around for the next one. We have Killers of the Flower Moon coming out very soon, and also the movie Dead Man from 1995 with Johnny Depp. So, yeah, stick around for both of those. And thanks for watching as always, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah. We'll see ya.